performance reviews. We are so happy that you are here. This session is all about preparing, writing, and delivering reviews and how important that is to the success of your business. So let me just share screen and we will get started. So as we're talking about mastering the art of performance reviews, I think it's important for us to understand why it is important. So as business owners, as business leaders, there might have been times where we have said, oh, he is not doing what I'm hiring him to do, or can't she just get it? Why doesn't she understand? And one of the most effective ways for us to move our business forward is obviously through our people. But there is this quote from Andy Stanley, you don't get better without evaluation. So whether it is the employee being reviewed, or even as the business leaders, we getting feedback from others about our own performance. We don't know what to fix unless we have that safe space or even that system built into our companies in regards of performance evaluations. So a performance evaluation, it is an employee's achievements and contributions to a company over a set period. It's a performance appraisal. Sometimes you'll hear it called as a performance review. I think those words are interchangeable, but it really is an evaluation of the achievements and contributions that those employees are making to the organization. It looks at the individual growth, accomplishments, and skills. And companies can document this performance. Sometimes it is done on a annual, semi-annual, or quarterly basis, depending on the organization. The evaluation process should provide the employer with insight on the employer performance throughout the business. So this will be a conversation that is different from the day-to-day work. Like, did you do this task? Did you get this done? This is a more broader conversation, and we'll dive more into that as we move along. So we are DPI LLC, and this is all, what do? We are business advisors that really help you to discover the tools to accelerate success. This is a way that you're able to get in contact with us. But I think I love this picture of Renee and I simply because we want to walk with you through the difficult, chaotic, volatile journey of entrepreneurship. So let's talk about just some benefits of having an evaluation. And if you've ever had an evaluation, maybe put, what are some benefits of you having that evaluation? You can put it in the chat, even for Renee and Elisa. You can put in the chat when you think about the own performance reviews that you've had. What was the benefit of it? Some of it helps improve performance because unless you know you're doing something wrong, how can you improve? So when you're able to get that feedback is very instrumental in you improving your performance. It clarifies expectations. Sometimes as business owners, as business leaders, we're thinking so far ahead. We just are like, someone understands me, and maybe they don't. So it allows a safe space for you to be more understood as a business owner, but then also for the employee to have an additional level of clarity. It allows for conversations. A lot of times, a lot of almost casual conversation will come up about what's going on in someone's life or in their business, why their work has been impacted in a certain way. It also addresses areas for improvement. Again, evaluation, nothing grows unless it's being evaluated, and it refocuses the work. We can all drift. Organically, we just drift away from our core focus as business leaders and as employees. So this allows the opportunity to refocus that work. Renee, what's in the chat in regards to some of the benefits?
So some of the benefits helps me to know where I am in the growth of my career, also know where I stand, how to improve, what's being done well, what needs to be done better. But I also want to point out, Rosalind, that it is a really good opportunity to build the relationship with the individual that you are having the evaluation. I think sometimes we overlook that as employers. We can often think that it's the time to to just kind of share what I need to have done and how it needs to be done, and can kind of be very more so really looking at the negative aspect of the employee's performance, but I like to utilize it as an opportunity to build the relationship with my employee, find out what motivates them, what's going well with them. Not that I want to dig into their personal life and cross that fine line, but just really being able to find out where they are and what they're thinking, and if there is something going on in the background that may be playing a factor into their performance.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to do a quick introduction of our kind of Q&A session, and this will be, because it's such a small group of us, open mic, definitely if you have a question, but Renee is going to be moderating this with Lisa. So Lisa is a USA Today best-selling author and the founder and president of HR consulting company HBL Resources Incorporated. She is no stranger to DPI LLC. She is on a mission of transforming the human in human resources as a member of SHRM, and that is the Society of Human Resource Management. She holds 2 nationally recognized HR certifications, and her firm is designated as an approved provider of recertification credit programs from both the SHRM and the HRCI. She's been recognized throughout her 30-year HR career with a 2020 American Business Award, a Silver Stevie Award for Entrepreneur of the Year, and Human Resource Professional of the Year. And she really attributes this success to her passion for people and desire to give back to her community. So we're going to have Renee and Lisa kind of walk us through, how do we do this? Take us through it, ladies.
Yeah, so Lisa, I'm so excited to be
Likewise.
here. You have such a stellar just background in HR. So I want to just come right off the bat, because the reason why Roz and I wanted to put this together is because a lot of the business owners that we speak with really don't have any type of regular cadence
Yeah.
for performance evaluation, and some don't do it at all. So
Right.
here's a question that we have for you. What is the importance of conducting a performance
Yeah.
evaluation?
I think much to many of the benefits that we saw listed on screen as well as in the chat, the performance evaluation really is that check-in time. It's that check-in opportunity, if we don't have it otherwise, to formally have a conversation with the team member that says, here's where we are, here's where we're going, and here's how we're going to get there together. Not just from an individual development standpoint, but for the organization as well. I think sometimes we miss that, and we were chatting a little bit before we went live here, that's such an important piece. Team members, especially depending on their generation, right? They want to check in, they want to know how they're doing. If you're from my generation and beyond, it's like, I don't need you to talk to me but once a year. Let me know how I'm doing. But they still need that annual check-in. And as we go into the newer generations entering the workforce, we start to see that need a little bit more regularly. So it's that check-in time, like you said, but it really is a way to keep our team members on track to what they're doing, to what the organization needs them to be doing, and the effectiveness that they need to be doing those things in. But we can go on and on. This could be an hour just on the benefits of performance evaluations and why they're so important. I think those hit on some very important ones.
They do. And so let me ask, is it a one-sided conversation, or is it something where we are kind of interacting with each other?
Yeah, I am a big believer in collaborative workplaces, right? There's not just the me and, me tell you. I think there's opportunities on both ends to come to the table. In fact, when we create and write and develop these processes for our clients, we're recommending that it's a two-way street, right? That the evaluation is given to your team members, even at hire, right? These are the things that we're going to be looking at that 90-day evaluation or at at that annual evaluation, because then they can perform to those needs as well, right? It's not a gotcha, here's what we were looking for you to do and you didn't do it, right? It's here's what they're going to be expecting, and they can immediately start aligning their behaviors and activities to those expectations. In addition to that, it's a hand them the evaluation blank, let them fill one out for themselves. You fill one out for them as well. And so you can kind of see where you think they are, where they think they are, and you're ready for that conversation to maybe get them into that in-between space. But it also provides you as the business owner or the manager an opportunity to say, hey, wow, they remembered this, this, and this throughout the year. I forgot that, right? Because sometimes, as I think Rosin will speak about, some of the evaluation errors, we want to be able to give that employee a seat at their own table, right? We want them to come to the table with their own ideas on their goals, right? You may have A, B, and C ready for them to achieve in the next year, but maybe I want to take an Excel class. Maybe I want to sharpen my skills with a Mac instead of a PC, right? Whatever it is, they can come to the table and be a collaborative partner in making that a win-win conversation.
So Lisa, I love that, because I know for me, when I was in corporate America, I did enjoy those times when I had an opportunity to share what I felt were not only my strengths, but also areas where I wanted to develop.
Exactly.
An opportunity for me to communicate with my supervisor at that time, maybe some things that I needed to assist me from a training perspective, development perspective. So I love that you share, you fill out one, the employee fills out one, and you all kind of come together in that conversation, which is going to be interactive and, as you said, collaborative. Now, here's a question just from a legal standpoint. Are performance evaluations required by law?
Right. Great question. And it surprisingly enough, they are not required by law. Right. But interestingly enough, as we start to make decisions in our workplaces, as we start to make decisions on promotions, on maybe layoffs, if we've got large, organizations and we've got to make some tough decisions, those are going to be the documents that we look to make those decisions and justify some of the business decisions we're making. How do we justify those decisions without it, right? Heaven forbid the organization comes into litigation situations and an employee who might be disgruntled, who maybe got terminated or laid off, right, says, oh, they did it for some discriminatory reason. Well, without a performance evaluation, we can't point to that says they're the team member who really wasn't performing to their best from all of them, right? Those are very important legal documents at those points, rather than them being, required by law. They're a great thing to have for many reasons as we make the decisions that we do in our workplaces.
So important. So what would you say are some of the key elements to include in a performance review? Because that's a question we get often.
Absolutely. I think sometimes the development of that performance evaluation really is specific to the organization itself. I think that if any organization has a mission, vision, values, tenets, right, those things need to be included. How is that team member performing to the requirements that you have as an organization? How are they meeting the needs for open communication and dialogue, honesty, integrity, whatever those things are that apply to everyone within the organization? And then I think it's also important to include, what does that specific position require, right? Is it analytical ability? Is it attention to detail? Is it, the ability to produce X amount of widgets per week or month or year, right? Those kinds of things. So there's the organizational perspective that everybody is tied to. There's the position specific things that everyone is tied to. And there's various ways that we can evaluate, right? The 1 to 5, the 1 to 10, there's different modules, models for that. But we've got to have an organizational piece, an individual position piece. And then I think that there's the, I'm going to age myself with this, but the MBOs, right? The managing by objectives, using SMART goals in our evaluation so that we've got specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, time-bound goals for them to achieve before that next evaluation period, and that those tie to the organizational needs, right? If you are creating an evaluation for someone and their goals are not tied to the organization and when the direction the organization is going, then you're not getting all that bench strength necessary to keep the organization moving in the direction that you want. And then of course I always think there's commentary, right? For every evaluation, there should be commentary, there should be explanations. If someone's doing, needs to develop in a specific area, they're not really cutting it, meeting the mark, then indicate why that is. What were some of the examples throughout the year so that that individual can understand what the behaviors were that are not going to reach the higher marks and what you expect so that they can. I think sometimes we do that in our corrective action conversations, right? Here's what you did. Here's what you need to do. Here's how to fix it. This is a great opportunity to reiterate some of those things at the evaluation time, realizing that the evaluation is not the time to say, oh, by the way, I didn't tell you this 6 months ago, but it's showing up on your review. There should be no surprises on the evaluation, right? And the employee should also have that equal opportunity to create those comments as well. So again, organizational, position specific, objectives, goals, right, tied to the organization or individual development, actually both, and then that commentary that says, how do you think it's going, right? And again, I'm a big believer in wrap sessions throughout the year so that you have those touch points so that there's no surprises later.
So let's talk about timing.
Yeah.
How often should you be having this type of dialogue? We know there typically is the once a year where you do an overview of what they have performed in that year. But what is a timing with regard to performance evaluation conversations? How often should that be taking place?
I'm a big believer that they take place daily, right? The reality is we are giving someone either an attaboy, thanks for the extra shift, thanks for the extra work, the report was great. That is a performance conversation, as little as that might be. But I think, depending on the needs of the organization and the bandwidth, right? I'm a huge advocate of a bi-weekly check-in with the people that I lead, right? The people that I serve as well, right? Because it's a two-way street, and that check-in. And in my book, The Complete Manager Makeover, I have a wrap session form, and it's the actual conversation that I used to have when I was in the workplace, right? It's, how's it going? What are we doing well? What could we be doing differently? Are there any barriers in, the job that I need to be removing, right? Because as your leader, I need to make sure that you have no barriers to do your job. What are your career goals, right? What are the things that we've tasked you to do, and how are those projects going? Are there anything that you're stuck with? Those are those check-in opportunities to, one, keep things moving forward, both organizationally and personally. And it's that check-in time. I think one of you said a safe space needs to be created. And those are the opportunities that we create to create those safe spaces. You can't not talk to your team members throughout the year and then suddenly here's the review and they think that's a safe space, right? We haven't created that environmentally and culturally, and these check-in opportunities are the ideal for that. We're starting to see a shift from the annual to a more quarterly formal review, with one of those being maybe tied to an increase of some sort and things of that nature, as we start to see, funds shift after, the pandemic, and organizations moving more again towards giving increases in pay and things of that nature. But that quarterly model is really becoming something that we're starting to see in the workplace a little bit more often. A formal quarterly check-in, and then that annual that pulls them all together. But I think there's some huge value in those quarterly check-ins, because sometimes our team members don't know how to manage their own goals, right? I'm supposed to take this class by the end of my evaluation, but I don't even know where to start to look for where I can find them, right? And having those check-ins and that encouragement by a manager along the way creates some better success and goal achievement.
So I'm glad you shared
Renee,
about
can
absolutely.
when you were asking about the given, I just want to kind of give an example. Like I pulled my review from 2015.
Okay.
So I was a part of the sales team. And I remember there was a part that was 50%, and it would be specifically focused on, did you help drive this level of sales?
Yes.
Would have to bullet point, how did we get to at that, I don't even remember what the number was.
Uh-huh.
And the other piece of it was more like subjective.
Mhm.
Because I was a leader, were you able to set direction?
Mhm.
I would be graded on that. Were you
Okay.
able to motivate and inspire? And then there were competencies that everybody was scored on. They were the
Correct.
same for everybody, and
Right.
it had everything to do with the values. One of the values was have fun at work. And so
Mhm.
it's like, do you bring humor into your day?
Right.
That's crazy, but that was a
Yeah.
part of their values. They wanted to
Right.
see behavior. Are you
Right.
able to self-manage? Because I was remote, and so they
Right.
need that being able to self-manage and be able to set your own timeline. And then
Right.
there was commentary at the end. So I just want to kind of to give that as an example,
Yeah.
especially when you're working with a sales force, uh, anyone, obviously, but you
Right.
really want to make sure that they understand if this is the financial goal for 2024, they
Mhm.
need to know that, and they need to know
Yes.
the piece of that that they're going to be accountable for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now,
Absolutely.
how might that look different if you have, say, a virtual assistant or you have an admin? I definitely understand what you're saying, Rosalind, from a sales perspective, but you see a lot of, especially small business owners, they're utilizing virtual assistants or they have admins part-time. And even though those individuals
Customer
are
service.
independent contractors, not necessarily W-2 employees, they still may want to have that conversation with them with regard to even the biweekly kind of wrap up session. What's your thoughts on that?
That's a question for me. I love that question.
Yes.
Because I am a huge advocate of ensuring that we are holding our vendors, our independent contractors, anyone who supports our business to the same standards that we would an employee, right? The deliverables need to be met. I had a client once, and bringing this philosophy to the table, the contractor was not meeting several of the needs and scopes of work that they themselves outlined, right? And so I think businesses tend to forget that they can, in fact, hold vendors and independent contractors accountable to the productivity, to the expectations, to the scope of work that was outlined in the original deliverables, right? So I encourage my clients, yep, take out that proposal that I sent you and let's go through every single deliverable and where we are with it. I do a quarterly check-in with, and I'm the one that's initiating that conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But business owners should do the same with their accounting people, with their HR consultants, their fractionals, with their strategic partners. Where are we on these deliverables? How are we doing? We can still do that. Maybe it's not a formal evaluation and what have you, but those are the conversations that are going to determine, is this the right contractor or vendor for you? Or do I need to get someone else who might meet and align with the expectations that I'm seeking for my business? Absolutely. We need to hold our independent contractors equally as accountable to the deliverables that we expect.
That's so good. That's so good.
Yes.
Are there any questions? I don't want to be asking all the questions because, so of course, Peter or Vic, if either one of you have questions, feel free. I've got more questions that I want to ask, but I don't want to not allow you the time and space to ask any questions you may have.
Yeah, I'd love to learn about their businesses as well.
Oh, Peter Teller.
So hi, my name is Peter Farinas. I'm the owner of Turf and Vine. We're the provider of artificial turf and synthetic plants for custom home builders and high-end commercial properties.
Awesome. Excellent. Okay. My husband was looking into that a couple months ago. Like, do we want to do that? Somebody right down the road did. It looks lovely.
Nice, nice.
Awesome. Awesome.
And Vic, are you able, I saw you come off mute. Are you able to share about your business?
I don't know why they let me put my phone agency owner here in Athens, Georgia. I own and operate agency and I corporation. So
It's a little hard to hear you. I don't know if you're in a bad area. It's a little hard to hear you. So if you're able to, maybe you can just pop it into the chat because there's a lot of static. So unfortunately, we're unable to hear.
Might be in the road. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm unable to hear your question. Lisa, I have a question because we've set the groundwork with regard to why someone needs to have a performance evaluation. We've shared what it needs to kind of look like. I want to circle back to something that you shared with regard to the structure and how these evaluations need to look. You talked
Mhm.
about organization, then drilling it down to the individual and how they are their actual position
Yeah,
and what
position.
they're doing from a standpoint of their performance, and then SMART goals. And
Mhm.
then you talked about the commentary. And I want to
Yeah.
really talk about the commentary because one thing that you said, and you kind of said it really quick, but I do want to go back to you talked about examples.
Mhm.
And that being a part of that performance, whether it's the 90-day or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
Share with me what we should be including from a standpoint of examples. How should we
Yeah.
be tracking that, keeping that a part of our
Yes.
note taking within the employee or the contractor? Can you share a
Yes.
little bit more about that?
Oh, absolutely. So, one of my methods, and I train to these methods as well in our training programs, is ensuring that we really do have a picture of the entire year's performance, right? And I think Rosalind will talk about some of the evaluation errors. I won't step on those toes, but it's okay to have a notepad, right? That says, in January, we talked about this project. In February, I had a client reach out and say how wonderful Jane was on the phone during this customer service interaction, that they went to a training class and came back with all these key points and started to implement those training things in March, right? We've got to have that running total, right, of those interactions, those touch points, those opportunities to correct behavior throughout the year, so that when we come to the table at that annual evaluation, that we really are taking a whole approach to the year, not just what I can remember, because I don't know about you, but my memory doesn't even go back about 3 days, right? So having that running total, if you will, some clients of mine, they've used even a calendar, those old journals, that you don't really find anymore because everything's digital, to just make notations there, right? And if you had any real, successes or real areas of opportunity, I like to call them, right? Weaknesses, others to call them, those areas of opportunity that you had to speak to, that we jot those things down, right?
Okay.
And if those are consistent challenges, that they come to the table with those things. But without giving those examples, I don't think sometimes team members can really say, well, what do I need to do differently, right? Here's what you did do, here's what we needed differently. Maybe it's an example of when they ran to the manager for advice on a challenge they were having, right? Maybe running to me and saying what you would like to do as a correction or as an idea. Let me hear that first. Set up the expectation that you're looking for as well, because then there won't be any change, right? You've got to really be very specific about what it is you'd like to see done differently, and that is what they can implement in that next review year. I hope that speaks to your question.
It does, and it actually ties very nicely to the next question that I had with regard to whether it's a vendor or it is an employee, an independent contractor.
Yeah.
What is the best way? What are some of the language we should use when we're having to have what could be seen as a difficult conversation regarding performance and giving constructive just advice and
absolutely
to the individual?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, much to the training that we conduct, there's a way to, first we've got to make sure that we're at that point, right? We've got to make sure that there's nothing that was in the way of that person performing, right? Is it a training issue? Were they not aware? Were they not aware of the expectation, right? I think that there's a lot that goes into the pre-work of whether or not we have to have a corrective action conversation. And in my book, we've got a full chart of what that looks like to do before you get to the in writing conversation, right? That formal performance corrective action, conversation. But given the fact that we've got a performance issue, it's nothing a barrier. They had the tools, they knew the training, all of those things, right? Barring any of that, it's really sitting them down, having that one-on-one conversation that's taken, confidentially, right, between the two, right? If you need a witness, then get the witness if that's your structure, right? That says, here's where we are. Here's what occurred. I wanted to share some insight with you. I needed to correct some performance issues that we've been having, right? That kind of thing. And be very direct with it. There's old models out there about the sandwich. Give them something positive, give them something developmental, to give them something. I'm not an advocate of that, right? Because I think it muddies the waters, right? We give praise when the praise is needed, and we should do that regularly and when it occurs. And we should give corrective opportunities, corrective action conversations, and developmental opportunities when they happen, and never the twain shall meet, in my opinion, right? Let's not muddy the waters, right? So
Okay.
You have that conversation and share with them. And in fact, part of my book is a bookmark that literally will tell the manager, here's what to say, how to lead into that conversation, how to start that. I wanted to take some time with you, Jane, to share some insight, to share some feedback on some areas of opportunity that we have. And as you can see, I always use language that builds up, right? Not, oh, Jane, we've got some problems here, right? No, I'm not a big advocate of that. I'm very selective with words so that we can really touch on that human element. One of my taglines, and is make sure your employee always walks out of your office with their dignity intact, right? We can still have the conversation, we could still send the tough messages, we could still hold them accountable, but we do so by building up and not tearing down. So hopefully that answered your question. But it starts just like that. Jane, I wanted to take an opportunity to share some things that we've got to be doing differently because they're not meeting the needs or whatever it is, right? Here's what I found, right? Your sales numbers are low, your call log isn't being filled out. Be very direct with what it is that you've discovered based on your insight, your investigation, right? Show the proof in the pudding, right? And here's what I think we need to do going forward to get this improved, right? To improve this area, to increase the scores, to whatever it is, right? Fill in your own blanks, and then make some commitments. Jane, in a couple of weeks, I'd like to check back in with you, right? Because if we just say, oh,
Okay.
here you go, and that's it, good luck, right? And we don't have those wrap sessions, right? Those check-in opportunities to say, are they doing well? And give that attaboy or attagirl that says, I've noticed an increase, keep it up, right? Re-encourage to that behavior so that it continues. Because when we notice that you notice, it makes us more encouraged to continue on that performance, right? So it's a lot of work, but it's well paid off, and can get that team member turned around and redirected.
Well, and I think that feedback is kindness. I really think
Yes.
highest level of kindness.
Yes.
I remember I was very early in my career, and the way that I dealt with conflict was how I had learned as a child.
Right.
I remember, oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. I don't even know if I want to say it. I started taking off my earrings because I was so in fight mode.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was,
Yeah.
and there was my director at the time, and this was, I mean, I was part of the leadership team, but I was so attacked, right?
Right.
So it was like,
Feeling that.
fight or flight, right? And so I was in
Yes.
that room, hey, we're gonna stay
Yes.
fight this.
Yes.
Pulled me aside, and I felt that that was the highest level of kindness,
Yeah.
be able to tell me something that allowed me to advance in my career.
Correct.
So
Absolutely.
feedback, I don't want performance reviews to be looked at as just negative, like you're just
Exactly.
a problem, right?
Exactly. They're not.
But I do believe as business owners, business leaders,
Yeah.
feedback is the highest level of
Mhm.
kindness when done in a constructive and respectful manner.
Absolutely. 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 I concur.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Now, how as organizations, how can we foster a culture of continuous feedback? How can
Yeah.
we foster that type of culture in our organizations?
Yeah, I think I spoke to it, a moment ago in those wrap sessions, right?
The wrap session.
Creating and expecting ourselves as the leader and the managers who support us to have that same methodology, to have the expectation that on a weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, I always did it bi-weekly. It just worked for me. At one point, I had 7 HR representatives reporting to me, and in my VP, it was 20 HR directors, and every 2 weeks we were taught, right? And so
Yes.
what's that happy medium for you, but expected of yourself and expected of the managers that you lead? That's the first thing. I think number 2 is, we all have the open door policy. I think we need to realize that the open door policy not only says that the employee can walk in, but that I, as a manager, can walk out. Right. And walk the floor and go say hi and see them in their own spaces, create those touch points and opportunities like Rosalind said, that safe space. They don't know that there's a safe space unless that safe space is created and is part of the culture. And when they see you walk around and look for the information and look for how they're doing, and you can walk in, but I'm going to walk out at you too, right?
Okay.
That truly shows the safe space within the organizational culture that allows for communication to occur. Don't expect that your employees are just going to suddenly just come and communicate to you whenever, they think they need to. It's not going to happen unless you've created that culture of open communication. And just a employee open door policy just doesn't cut it. We've got to put that in action and create those touch points. Maybe it's a monthly huddle with the entire team that says, what are we doing well? Here's where we're going. I think sometimes as business leaders, owners, we're shy to say, here's the books, here's where we're doing, here's how we're doing, we need more revenue, the bottom line, and this and that, and really make them a part of who you are. Now, obviously, you can't show maybe every line item, but certainly those that really tie into letting them know they truly are a part of who you are, what you are. That's buy-in, and then they know how they can impact your business. I mean, we want to know that we're doing fulfilling work, and what is it that I do that really is making an impact for this organization. We miss that sometimes, but that's a whole nother conversation on onboarding. Right? So I think that would be very helpful in organizations as well.
Thank you so
Creating
much.
that culture.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I have two final questions. One, you've referenced your book, so if you could share with us where and how we can, individuals can get your book.
That.
And then the second is, for now that we've talked all this through, what are next steps for a organization that's never ever put any type of performance evaluation into place? This is the first time they're thinking about doing it. It's January, it's the beginning of the year.
Perfect time.
What are just some quick next steps? How can we get your book? And then we'll move on to Rosalind.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think the first steps is to, like I said before, know what your organizational culture is looking for in your team members. And you can start there. It's as easy as looking at your own website to say, what are the tenets? What are the values that we expect of our team members, right? For hire to that, right? Make sure that there's alignment at the hire so that there's no surprise that someone's not meeting those values within the organization. Start there. Categorize the jobs. If there's administrative assistants, it really doesn't, matter too much if the admin is in sales or marketing or, accounting, that kind of thing. Administrative skills are administrative skills. And what were those expectations? And so you can create an evaluation for your administrative support staff. And then what are the other positions? Are there installers? Are there salespeople, right? You have reviews that are targeted for each of those individually, because an admin may or may not have a sales line item in
Mhm.
in their evaluation, right? Start to look at those so that you can kind of group them together so that you have fewer evaluations, but each evaluation should have a section that's specific to the job at hand. Of course, we have the quality of work, the quantity of work, the communication, the teamwork, reliability and attendance, right? All of those kinds of things.
Mhm.
But in addition to that, what are the tenets of the organization? What are the specific needs of each position? And start there.
Okay.
Do some research on SMART goals so that when you are developing goals, you are making them specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. And so, and create that document. What does that document look like, right? But that's a great starting point, I think, to begin to create those things. And then finally, if you don't want to do all that work yourself, then my book is available, The Complete Manager Makeover. It is available on our website if you'd like a signed copy, along with the bookmarks that I mentioned as a desk reference. And there are 6 bookmarks that come with that, kind of the cheat sheet excerpt from the book.
Okay.
And it is also available on Amazon. Amazon does not carry the bookmarks, but you can get the book. And I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about that. And my website is hblresources.com, where you can, find that book at any given time. I think my phone number was listed on your earlier slide, so I'm happy to reach out to anybody in your community and support them in any way.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Yes, there's your information. And so that'll end this portion of the meeting. But Rosalind, I know that you have some information to share as well.
Yeah, so very quickly, I wanted to talk about some of thank you so much, Lisa and Renee.
My
I
pleasure.
appreciate that. I want to talk about some of the mistakes that we can make. And listen, I put these up here because I have made every single one of them, managing a large team at one point of 200 plus, and I have made every single one of these errors. So I was like, we will not have a call like this without talking about the errors. The first one is the contrast error. And I think it's just in our world of comparison, it's so easy to evaluate relative to other people. And so if there's 2 salespeople that I have, then I'm going to compare one to the other and think one is great and one is like really, maybe struggling. I think it's why it's important that when you're defining those objectives and what those specific goals are for the organization, that you are evaluating not based on comparing, but established criteria that everyone knows right from the beginning.
Mhm.
The other one is the first impression error. And many times, depending on what that first impression is like, we will either judge favorably or unfavorably about their performance. And so we want to make sure that, again, the criteria that we lay out, that they're going to make, 10 phone calls every week, and you're able to measure that is the objective criteria that I'm using, not just kind of my feeling about the person or when I first met them. The other thing is the recency effect. This one was huge looming for me, where we give extra weight to what was most recently done. So when you are sitting in January and you're trying to think back to what happened last March, it's going to be easier for you to just think about what happened in December or a few weeks ago. It's important that we are documenting. One of the things I would do sometimes if I was sending out emails or I had sent like a great job email, I would have a folder for each of my employees on my email, and that would be a way that I would be able to kind of have a running understanding and kind of jog the memory of what they had done throughout that entire review period. The halo effect is generalizing one aspect of their performance that, hey, they're great in this area, they're also great in that area. It clouds our judgment on where the areas of opportunity are. On the flip side of that is the horn effect, where we overgeneralize the negative aspects, like, oh, they're just bad here and here and here. Again, take it back to the individual objectives that you have. All humans have strengths and weaknesses, and it's important for us to see through that lens. And then the similar to me effect, my goodness. This one was huge for me. As it is easy for us to judge more favorably those people whose background is very similar to us. It's a part of our bias system. It's a part of they look like me, sound like me, same gender as me, or whatever it might be. So it's important, again, that you're evaluating performance and behaviors is not on someone's personality or their background. That's not what you're judging them on.
Mhm.
And yeah. So what are some solutions when you think about all of these errors that you can make? And there are more, but these are the ones that are some of the common ones. Would you say that's accurate, Lisa?
I would. In fact, these are many that are outlined in the training that we deliver. So you're spot on.
Yeah. And because I've made them. So like, I didn't have to have a book, like I've made all of these. But ensure that the criteria is objective and that everybody's being held to the same measure in regards to the global goals that you have. Obviously, each individual role will be different, but the large things you want everybody is kind of measured very objectively and to how their job is related to moving that needle forward. Rate employees in relation to their job responsibilities. So that defining, I know that was one of your steps, that defining the actual role and responsibility is important. Put other people's input into proper perspective and don't weigh too heavily. If, in a larger organization where the sales team might be interfacing with the marketing team and they might be saying some buzz about Bob and you don't necessarily see that, just put it into perspective and make sure that as you are evaluating them, that you're not allowing those voices to weigh too heavily. Consider all performance dimensions and realize that they aren't related. So someone, and I know Renee, we talked about this, someone can be great at sales, and then there could be someone who's great at the customer service experience. They go into the details, into the weeds, and you need to kind of have them pull up. But just know there's going to be people who are different and have different skill sets and different responsibilities. So even though from a business owner perspective, you might need them to be out there developing business, you got to understand that might not be the sweet lane of brilliance for them. Do not rate people in any particular order. This is if you have a lot of people that are on your team. In other words, don't say like, oh, I'm gonna get these hard ones out of the way. Don't do that. I used to just go in alphabetical order. And then don't compare each other's ratings until you're kind of finished and all at the end. Like, oh man, I rated, because what you'll start to do is like, I rated so many people high, I need to rate somebody lower. No, wait until the end to see the full synopsis. You ladies have anything to add there?
Well, while you all were talking, I thought about my son who's in high school and even the cadence of how often they get report cards, right? Can you imagine when you were in school that the teacher waited until the end of the year, school year that is, to let you know what your grade is? But I love how schools do it because they not only have report cards that come out every semester, but they also have progress reports, right? So in between the semesters, you're going to have your progress report. And so if you even think about that same cadence with your own business, I think it will do nothing but set you up for great success. So ladies, thank you. Gentlemen, thank you for being on the call. For those that are going to watch the replay, if you need either Lisa or DPI, we are here.